Hi, welcome. This is Star. I just wanted to revisit The Wolf and the Waterfall from the last reading. Uh, the more I think about it, the more I think it deserves a little bit more in depth uh, discussion. So, in honor of the Virgo full moon last month, I did a reading, and the first card that I pulled was the Ten of Vessels. And I remember feeling like that was such a good omen. And then I always pull an animal card at the end, and I got the wolf, and I was so touched by that for my own personal reasons that if you watch the reading, you can kind of tell I'm a little tongue-tied and don't even know what to say, other than kind of like this reverence, awe, and respect. And so to start and end on those notes was very. It just felt very reassuring or like a blessing to me. And then the entire reading itself surprised me with how much positivity came through. So I don't really remember the bulk of the reading. I haven't revisited the reading itself. I recorded that like a week and a half before that Virgo full moon, which is like Virgo can be crisis, right? So that's kind of like when the crisis was breaking out. Um, but I felt called to do that reading one night. I just felt this strong call to pick up my cards, and so I did. But anyways, that was still at the end of February. The Mercury retrograde in Pisces. Everything was very like dreamy and ethereal. I felt very tapped in, very in tune. And then, I think I posted it closer to the full moon. And so then, like fast forward as we're in the situation we're in now. And I kind of was like, I want to say questioning, like where, what was in the message that I felt called to bring up for everybody. And like, is it still just that like there's going to be positivity in the midst of all this? I don't know. Um, but I did feel that the wolf in the waterfall was worth looking at because a few weeks ago I went ahead and put an update on that video. And I don't really think I have a big enough following that it matters, to be honest. But just to hold my own, I wanted to address it. And so I've been for the last few weeks contemplating what is the wolf in the waterfall or the waterfall and the wolf, right? And so shortly after this, a good friend throws up a post. They have no idea I'm thinking this. And they're like, wolf spelled backwards is flow. It's like, what? That's trip with the wolf and the waterfall. And so I've just been thinking, what message with these two cards, like the start of the reading being this like free flowing, wonderfully positive card, and then the end card kind of being this very intense yet gentle, um, powerful wolf energy. And so I guess in the midst of everything that's happening right now, is like the paradox of how do we hold both? How do we allow ourselves to flow um, in the midst of staying still? Or maybe not still, but staying in place. So like, what does that look like? Is that walking in nature nearby if it's available to you? Is that dancing in your room or your living room and just going crazy because no one's watching, just to move the energy? Uh, is that giving yourself the time and the space to do the grief work maybe you haven't wanted to do or haven't had the time to do, or maybe now it's just coming up because there is all this time, and not that everybody has this plethora of time, but there's definitely it's the quality of it has changed with the collective changing. And so perhaps you're just feeling grief for so many people suffering. And so maybe that flow is allowing the space to let that deeper stuff come up and feel it and cry. And then maybe, even though it's like you wouldn't associate grief with the Ten of Cups card, um, in a way, maybe that's a way to access a deeper healing. You know, have you ever had a good cry and then felt phenomenally better after, like you like let something really hard go? And I'm not saying approach grief work with an end result in mind, because grief work is its own process. And the most important part of it is presence. And then, so when I look at this wolf card, I just see such a strong presence. And not only that, like the back of the card with the little description, you know, it's saying how wolves are often villainized in like European cultures and our fairy tales growing up in our culture, but that in Native American culture they were actually revered as deities and a very special totem. And so that's significant, because I also feel like going back to how do I word this? Like, I don't want to say like getting back to the earth, healing in the earth and working with the earth and the land. Our culture isn't that attuned to, and it might be a part of the medicine needed at this time. So what I'm trying to say is just that if you can set aside any conditioning about wolves and really just look at them as these, well, I shouldn't say you have to do anything, but the way I look at them is this like really phenomenal, beautiful creature that has so much integrity. So how do we hold our integrity at this time of so much uncertainty, so many different emotions, so much trauma coming to the surface in all these different ways? How do we hold our own in that? How do we stay in our power, right? Because like when I think of a wolf, I don't think of a wolf afraid or like it holds its own. And not only does it hold its own, it it has integrity and it's aware and awake. So how do we be aware and awake and on the lookout? Like on the lookout, but not in a panicked way. And just this like, if you ever watch wolves, I mean, or have seen like a webcam of them in like a conservatory, you know, like if they're not sleeping, they're paying attention. Their ears are perked. They're aware of what's going on around them, but they're not afraid. Like they're not in any kind of they're not you know, like flailing or cowering. Now, of course, if there's abuse involved, that's different, but that's not really the case. So, and then also getting past the cultural conditioning that like wolves are these scary creatures is this idea of like, well, how many people love dogs, absolutely love dogs. So they're a descendant of wolves, right? And when you think of dogs, what do you think of? Like they're loyal, right? Um, and wolves are loyal, and they're loyal to their pack, right? So here we are in this time of crisis. And how do we look out for, speaking of wolves, my dog just came in. Do you have something to say on the matter? Nope, just interrupting? Okay, Thanks. I'm glad. Okay. So where I was going with that was packs, right? So they're loyal and they look out for each other. And so how can we do that right now? And you know, if it isn't your biological family, it could be your soul family. Because right now we're connected on a global level. And it's not like, oh, yeah, just go get coffee with a friend right now. You know what I mean? It's like a person in Sweden is just as close to me as a person 10 miles away. It really doesn't matter because I'm in place. So, but yet, like, energetically, the energy has just been like cracked wide open. Um, in the sense that we're all connected right now. We're isolated and we're connected at the same time, which is like a really strong paradox. Um, but how can we hold those in our inner circle closer? How can we check on them? How can we hold the presence, hold the integrity, and look out for them? And if we don't have an inner circle, how can we start to create one or find one? Because it's so important. It's so, so important. And I've been doing a lot of meditations to clear for the collective and to call in light, call in protection, call in just like be like a, what would you call it, like a faith. I'm trying to hold the faith and the light. Uh, and trust that the, here, let me explain this. There's like it's like quantum theory, right? With chaos, if you try and order chaos, it creates more chaos. And if you let go and you let the chaos just be, it'll reorganize itself naturally. So I'm trying to remember that the earth is incredibly intelligent and she knows what she's doing, and to let go of control and surrender. Not easy. I'm not going to say I've been perfect at this. It's been a roller coaster. And it's been, I think, challenging everyone. And there's been this message to go easy and be gentle on ourselves. And no one's really expecting too much of us at this time. So no matter what you have going on, no matter what you're facing, you know, like how can you tap back into your center and trust the intelligence of nature? And how can you get the energy moving so that we're not stuck in this old paradigm, and to maybe be able to move into something new? And I don't know, like maybe that could even be a promise of what's to come. Like, I'm so still kind of baffled by how positive that reading was, and then just how everyone's just been in a state of uh, just turmoil. Um, so, Virgo can be crisis, and it's not crisis. Like, crisis is, it's not just like, oh, the universe is throwing a wrench in everything and trying to mess up your plans. um, Crisis is essential to evolution. So in evolutionary astrology, there's two kinds of change. There's slow, gradual, progressive change. and then there's cataclysmic change. And that's what the crisis is, right? Like, if you're not well, I don't want to say, it's not like an if or thing. It's basically just, it's time. It's time for us all to evolve. And it's weird because I feel like we've all known this is coming for some time now, and then it just never showed up. And so it was just kind of like, okay, I guess things are just going to keep going the way they are, even though so many of us know that that's not possible. And then look, here's this collective crisis. So this isn't even just centralized to one place. This is everybody. This is affecting everybody. And how much unity does that bring? And so when I think of the wolf, I think of unity. I think of like a pack as a functioning as a unit, and a healthy, stable one at that. So I'm just taking a minute to see if anything else wants to come through. But otherwise, I feel like this is pretty complete as far as what I wanted to get into. How can the spirit or the essence of wolf energy guide and protect you through this? How can you guide and protect those you love through this? How can you begin to let go of what doesn't matter and truly hold what does? And let the water flow, whatever that means to you. Tears, joy, both, it doesn't matter. Just evolution is essentially movement. Life is essentially movement. So how do we move through this and allow the chaos to reorganize itself, to let go and have trust, and to send the earth and all of those that need it some extra love. And that's all that's coming to me, other than the fact that there is some, there's also like a couple of ravens in this card. So right here, there's a couple of ravens and some feathers. So I've been seeing tons of crows out lately. And they're also another one that's another creature that sort of has a bad rap, but isn't necessarily evil. And definitely magical, definitely the night. And the deep black represents the feminine, right? Like the womb, the void. So we're at the beginning of something, and how do we breathe life into what that is, right? So there isn't just, like the raven gets the rap of death, but it's like death is what takes away the stagnation to bring new life. Which brings us back to this feeling of this card. And the growth. And yeah, that's really subtle in this card, as far as the two little ravens and then the protective feathers. But so an old way is definitely dying, and something new is coming in. And I hope you are taking care of yourself, and that maybe this offered some insight. And yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and do a reading for the Libra full moon tomorrow, but it'll be separate from this, just to keep the timing of them separated. And if you have any insights through looking at these cards or listening to me talk, like, I would love to hear them. And yeah, I don't know, like, I just felt that it was important to give it a little bit more attention. So wolf spelled backwards is flow. So that reading started off with flow, ended with wolf. I think that reading also had the labyrinth card in it, the world tree. Yeah, because I did the whole world tree reading. And anyways, there's this whole, like, why don't we just skip the maze and go right into the heart of the earth and what we need. And just how do we keep coming back to life? Because life will find a way. And so how do we come back to not just the breath, but like being with the force and the intelligence that has the buds bloom in the spring and causes butterflies to fly south, and like the four directions, the elements, all of it. How do we get there to stay in our power and let go of any stagnation? So I'm starting to ramble. Thank you for tuning in.